So today we're at one of the highlight sessions again this year where our faculty are going to give us TED-style type talks about a particular research topic, particular topic of interest right at the moment in our time. So we've got 4 faculty for you lined up today, and we're essentially traveling from the sun back down to the planet, then back up into the air and above the clouds to end up with the planet again and a bit of culture to understand how that may make a difference to our planet and sustainability. So a really nice, fully fun, packed session that will last for about an hour and a half. So I'm not going to delay things any further. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Shadi Najjar, who's going to talk to us about powering the planet from sun to soil. So Dr. Najjar, if you'd like to come up.
Okay, thank you, Jason, for the opportunity to present in ideas. So today I will talk about a technology that could be used to contribute to the decarbonization of the built environment, particularly with regards to heating of homes. And for that, I will start with a best illustration of this technology, which is in Canada, one of the coldest countries on Earth. In Canada, around 80% of energy is used for heating either spaces or homes. So unfortunately, this is done using fossil fuels at this point. However, there's a small community in an area called Drake Landing in Alberta. This community decided to do it otherwise. They decided that they're going to turn toward the sun and that they will basically power their homes and heat them using renewable energy. Now, they became, in 2005, the first solar heated community in the world with a solar fraction of over 90%. So the obvious question is, how did they do it? And to know how they did it, you have to look at the technology that we are talking about. First, they installed 2,293 meters squared of solar collectors on the roofs of their garages. So every house has a garage in front of it. They equipped it with a solar collector. These are flat plate collectors, and during the summer and during the spring, these collectors can harness thermal energy from the sun. So they would take that energy and they would transfer it through a set of 144 boreholes that are 35 meters deep in the ground. They would transfer it to the ground to be stored. Now, this is what is referred to as a seasonal borehole thermal energy storage system, BTES for short. Now, how does this system really work? Let me take you through the process of its functionality. So there are 2 phases during the year. In the first phase, which is basically the summer and the spring, the system is in a charging mode. So what happens is that the sun heats the fluid, in this case, it's a mixture of water and glycol, up to temperatures of around 100 degrees. So this water is pumped and circulated within the boreholes such that the heat is step-by-step transferred from the fluid to the soil or to the rock. So we are basically going into a charging phase that lasts almost for 2 seasons. We're talking about the summer and the spring. And after the charging phase finishes, you end up with something that looks very similar to a thermal battery. So when the season comes where the people want to heat their homes, we move to the second phase, which is the discharging phase. And in this phase, you simply circulate hot water through the borehole system, and now the procedure is inverted. So the cold water is going to take the heat from the soil, and step by step, the temperature of the water goes up. When it reaches the level that is allowed to be entered into the houses for space heating, it is pumped into the houses. And this way, you would be powering your house or your home with 100% renewable energy. So in essence, we're talking about a very large battery. But now the battery is in the ground, and it's storing heat instead of storing electricity. Now, for those of you who like numbers, from this case history, we know that we have a store in the ground that is 35,000 meters cubed. That store has a temperature in the order of 70 degrees. So you can imagine the amount of energy that has been stored in it. This attributes to around 2,500 gigajoules per year of energy stored in the system. And if you want to make it per meter cube, you will get around 20 kilowatt hour of meter cube stored in the system. Now, unfortunately, this is the amount of energy that is stored and injected into the system. The amount that really gets extracted is much smaller than that. So we're talking about 1,000 gigajoules per year, indicating an efficiency in the order of 35%. Now, even with the 35% efficiency, they were able to heat their homes throughout the winter at a 90 or 95% solar fraction. So this is the weakness of the system. It's the efficiency, because it's simply an uncontrolled system. You're injecting the energy into the ground, but the energy can go anywhere it wants. The heat can move around the place. There are no barriers around the system. So you can imagine what the future research entered into after this important case study was put on display. So just taking a look at the system itself in a little bit more detail, this is a plan view of the system. You can see the 144 boreholes and the connecting pipes. Taking a look at the cross-section, you would see how the system is functioning. The hot water is entering into the borehole through one of the tubes. As it moves down, it transfers the energy to the soil. When it comes out of the borehole, now it has lost part of its energy. It goes into the other borehole until it basically dissipates all its energy to the ground. And in the extraction phase, the opposite happens. So, as I said, people got excited about this technology, and you have now all sorts of papers written around it. Some people have done work experimental at the level of the full scale. Very little such studies are really available. Others went into the numerical approach, testing techno-economic feasibility. The conclusion from all these studies, and I'm not going to go into the details of this picture, is basically that this process, modeling it, understanding it, is not easy. So the problem really has a lot of complications, and anything that relates to soil and rock, it will be very hard to model. So basically the efficiency, the heat transfer, and all the operation is dependent so much on the properties of the soil and the rock, the mineralogy of the rock and the soil, density, water content, saturation, and anything in between. So at this point in time, people thought, okay, so we have this system. It is almost 35% efficient in terms of injection and extraction. So what is the problem? The problem is the heat loss. So you can imagine that the next generation of these types of thermal storage systems was, okay, let me engineer my own tank, and I'm going to put in it the soil. I will choose the soil. I will compact it, and I will do whatever I want with it, and it's isolated from the environment. So the next generation of these types of seasonal thermal energy storage systems is simply tanks. And these tanks now are insulated. They are above ground most of the time. You don't worry about interaction with the environment at the lower level. So now you can move the temperature of the filler inside to values that are much greater than 90 degrees or 70 degrees. So now we're talking about systems that have the ability to really store heat in these insulated systems at temperatures in the order of 600 degrees. And this is only one of the startups that have emerged in the last 5 years trying to commercialize these tank thermal energy storage systems. They basically market them as 2 megawatt, 10 megawatt thermal energy batteries, and they use a technology in them that is a little bit different in the sense that they use cheap green electricity from wind and solar that are in excess of what is needed in a system, and then they use it to heat air to temperatures in the order of 600 degrees, and then the air is circulated into the tank, raising the temperature of the sand to almost 400 degrees. So you can imagine the amount of energy that is now in this system. Now, when you look at the comparison between the two, of course, the tank thermal energy storage system is more efficient, but that comes at the expense of cost. So if you look at the two curves in this figure, the upper one is that for a tank thermal energy storage system, and the lower one is for a borehole thermal energy storage system. So there's a factor of 4 when it comes to cost. So any gain that you're getting in efficiency, there's a trade-off between it and the cost. Having said that, why are these systems not common everywhere? And the answer to this is not simple, but I tried to list 4 reasons for that. First of all, the likelihood of success of these systems depends on the presence of a district heating system. And this is not present in all cities in the world. That's one. The economic feasibility of this system is still questionable, especially for small-scale applications. The applications where this has been feasible has been in relatively large applications with thousands and thousands of meters cubed of storage volume. Third, there are not enough data at this point for full-scale systems for the performance. And finally, there's a lot of lack of knowledge on the performance of the soil when it comes to the ability to conduct the heat transfer efficiently. So there is obviously a need for research, especially on the decentralized applications which we can dream of. I can dream of having such a system in the backyard of my house. We can dream of having such a system behind a hotel. So it doesn't have to be at a level that is large scale. So what have we been doing at AUB regarding this topic? So 3 years ago, we started discussing this topic and starting to play around with it. So we wanted to have the ability in the lab to try to mimic some of these operations and systems. We started with something very simple, a plexiglass tank. We included in it heat exchanger tubes. We injected in it sand, and we tried to pass hot water through it and get some data about performance. That was like the warm-up. After that, we went to a higher level, and we built a bigger tank, now made of stainless steel so that we can go up in temperature a bit. And we basically tried to build with it a tank that is, again, filled with different types of soils to test performance. Very simple data coming from the simplest test that we have ever done. This is the type of data that we collect. You charge the system, maybe in this case for 3 hours, and then you discharge it, and then you see how much energy you were able to extract compared to what you put inside. We tried to mimic a small-scale system that represents the bigger tank. So we only had one tube and put around it one circle of soil, if you wish, to mimic a tributary area around one of these big heat exchangers. That allowed us to test with different types of soils the efficiency of such systems. So we included sand, limestone, basalt, sand, limestone, etc. And we were able to measure some efficiencies. Again, this is just indicative. Now, the real experiment that we did at the lab level included a system that you see here. So we have our heat exchanger tubes, 55 of them. We circulated hot oil in them. The hot oil was used to transfer energy to the sand, which you cannot see because of the insulation of the tank. And we quantified the response. This is a short video that just explains the dynamics of the system. In the lab, you cannot have a solar source, so we used a constant temperature bath. We put in it the oil, we heated it with electricity. We had a source of 130 degrees. The oil was circulated into the system. The data was collected for a day only, 7 hours of charging, 7 hours of discharging. And the type of results that you get are neat, and they allow you to start to play with this problem and understand it. You can easily change the type of soil, the density of the soil, the water content of the soil, and so many other factors that are very useful in this system. The overall efficiency of these systems, as we're getting them in from the lab, is around 65%. So there's definitely losses happening all over the place. Now, this does not mimic the solar problem. So this year, we had an FYP group that is comprised of excellent students who took the challenge. And they basically wanted to have a solar source that is connected to this system, as there will be in practice. So here we basically put together a concentrated solar Fresnel lens. It's a small-scale lens, and we equipped it to be able to follow the sun during the day. And the idea is to concentrate solar energy at one point and to be able to heat a heat transfer fluid that passes through a receiver. And perhaps the third picture on the right has a good view of how this happens. You can see the light concentrated in the middle of the receiver. There's oil passing through the receiver, and it comes out from the other side at a temperature of 120, 130, depending on the application. It was very interesting to have this system because, again, it showcased the whole setup. And the students have been trying very hard in the last 2 weeks to collect data on this. The weather was not helping too much, but These are videos taken from L6 in IOEC, showing you approximately how this system functions. And soon we will be testing more and getting more informative data. To finalize, we were lucky enough here at AUB, of course, luck alone did not do it. We were lucky enough to be granted a very large fund from the European Union. Now, the beauty about this fund is that it will allow us to test this system at full scale. Of course, the fund is not only for us. We have partners from Europe, and the objective is the Mediterranean. So what we're going to be doing in this project is try to come up with a digital platform to showcase this technology, come up with design toolkits that will help people design these systems in a simple way, and more importantly, do 4 pilot actions, full scale, related to different technologies in this system. At AUB, we will be implementing the first such pilot. The tentative plan is to have a borehole thermal energy storage system, 20 boreholes, 25 meters deep, located next to Bliss Hall. So the idea is to provide Bliss Hall with around 30,000 kilowatt hour per year to support its decarbonization effort and to try to take part of the energy demand in that building for heating during the winter. So with that, I will close. I want to first thank many people who I did not really mention, but they were key to the progress that we have been doing. My collaborators at the faculty level, Dr. Joseph Zaiter, Dr. Salah Sadiq, and the 3 FYP groups that worked in the last 3 years on this. And I want to thank Dr. Imad Shiti, a research associate working in our group, and Dr. Imad is leading basically all this effort on the ground. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Shadi. What an amazing bit of technology, and congratulations on this multi-million-dollar grant. I hope most of those millions are coming our way, though, right? So we are going to open up the floor for a few questions. We have about 5 minutes or a bit less. So anyone have any questions I'd like to ask Dr. Najjar? Yes, Dr. Sheb? You can start while we get the microphone.
So thank you for the talk. You mentioned that you wanted to try it next to Bliss Hall and have boreholes. But with 35 meters, you would reach the water level, wouldn't you?
The depth is not 35 meters. The depth is going to be 25 meters, and we will not reach the sea level from there. We're at the upper campus, and we have made every single effort not to touch the water table in that area. Of course, there will be a site investigation at the beginning. The site investigation will reveal everything we want to know about the ground, any risks, and we will not take any step before we finalize all the risk analysis. The first year of the project is simply designing the system and finalizing all these parameters that we will be implementing.
Excellent, great idea, thank you.
So I can go to Dr. Sheb first. Yes.
Thank you, Shadi, for an amazing presentation. Really impressive.
Thank you.
So at one point you mentioned that you used oil. You heated oil instead of water. So this is just to get more and more energy instead of the water, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, my second question is related to what Bilal mentioned. You're going back to the boreholes when you said there are new systems that are making use of advanced technology. So why are you going back to the first phase of the boreholes?
It's an excellent question. And I didn't have time to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each. The boreholes are the least disrupting to a certain area. Yani, when you're talking about 35,000 meters cube of energy, it's a blessing that you're not seeing this 35,000 meters cube. If you want to put the 35,000 meters cube in a tank and put it above ground, it's going to be a 25-meter story building that has a diameter of whatever, 20 meters. You don't want to see that next to Bliss Hall. So there is a huge advantage in the fact that everything is concealed. The land, you can still plant it after you finish, wherever they are. So that's a major, major advantage. And the technology itself is not advanced. It's simply more effective at a certain cost. So again, I showed the difference in the costs. You want to balance these two. And we are seeking in this research the more practical approach. So we will leave like the high-end work to others because our solutions want to be for real applications that could be implemented in our villages, for example. We want to have a system that does not require 20 people to come and check it every single minute if it's going to be implemented in practice. So the simplest, or the simpler, the better for our application.
Okay. Shadi?
Sorry, what's my name?
Alan.
Professor Najjar, can you tell us a little bit? This is not an area that you had previous expertise in.
Correct.
Can you give us a little bit about the journey going from you have deep expertise in one area and all of a sudden you're a novice in a new one, and yet you had the courage and here you are with a large grant?
Yeah, I can tell you it's not a conventional path, the path that I took. So of course, I'm a geotechnical engineer. All my expertise is in soil, the behavior of soil, but it's all coming from the mechanical side. Mechanical in the sense stresses and strains and displacements and movements. So moving into energy was not easy at all, but it was facilitated by so many steps that happened, starting from the seed funds that the MSFEA was granting to faculty members. So I took that opportunity when the Inception Fund, it was called, or something like Concept Fund was there. I decided to try something new. So I had the money, I had the opportunity, and I invested the time. And then that went into another level of funding with the second fund that came after. And then we applied for URB fund to get funding to continue. The Masri grant that came in the last 2 years was phenomenal in allowing us to hire more people and work on this. And everything is building up. And luckily for our case, it built up, I think, to the max, which is basically having the opportunity from moving to that plexiglass thingy all the way to Bliss Hall and implementing a borehole system. So again, it's not conventional. I'm not sure if it can happen with everybody, but the stars aligned in our case.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank you,
phenomenal.
Professor Najjar, for this wonderful presentation. Rima Habib from the Department of Environmental Health. I know that it could be beyond the scope of your project, but this project has incredible potential, and you may want to consider allying with an environmental economist to show the reduction in the carbon footprint and the cost, because this could be a promotional campaign for your project, and more people will probably be enticed and encouraged to use these devices. Have you considered that, or will you consider that in the future since you have more funds? I'm not an environmental economist. I'm not promoting myself here.
Definitely. What you're saying is exactly what we have been thinking of. With the consortium that we have built, there are people in other partner institutions that are going to be fully dedicating themselves to this aspect of the project. And their role in the project, their work package, is to tackle everything related to the environmental footprint, the carbon reduction, etc. But for the team at AUB, we will definitely benefit from having that angle also and that skill within the team. Now we're in the process of building the team. In the next 2 months, the project will start in June 1. So we are looking at this aspect also in the hiring and in the staffing of the project.
Just a final question.
Thank you. Thank you, Shadi. This was really insightful and inspirational. I have a couple of quick questions. One, since you're storing a lot of the energy in the ground and you're using oil of some form, I can't but think of the potential of soil contamination of some sort. Could you please comment on this a little bit? So that's one. Two, with regards to the decentralization, which I think is fascinating and extremely important in our context. I'm wondering what would make us get closer to having decentralized system? Is it tackling the efficiency, tackling the economics? What will get us there?
Thank you, Arsam.
Thank you.
For the first question, any technology that includes boreholes in it does not involve oil. So the oil is for the tank systems where everything is isolated, insulated, above ground. You don't worry about it. All the technologies related to the boreholes are simply water or a mix of water with glycol at very low rates that do not affect the environment. But this is a very critical point. Even the temperature that you aim at in the ground has to be limited to some value so that you don't have interactions that would be damaging to the environment. Now, with regards to the decentralized issue, this is the major thing. I think it could be the breakthrough that such a project that we're doing and the mentality that we're looking at it could bring to the table. Now, of course, there's the economies of scale. So the bigger the tanks, the bigger the volume, the bigger everything is, the less are the losses in terms of a ratio of losses to area. So definitely you would benefit from having bigger systems. However, when you have big systems, you have also the distribution network. And there are recent research studies that are showing that you lose in the research network a lot of energy also, and that could be saved when you have your system next to your house. So there is hope there, and of course, the research and the knowledge and the optimization of the performance. It's required to be able to go to that level and to show efficiency and economics.
Absolutely superb. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Shadi, and give me a round of applause. Fantastic talk.